Hi guys, today we are going to learn about the differences in national political, economic and legal systems. So let's start with the political economy. So what is political economy? So it consists of three systems, that is political, economic and legal. And we are going to see how these systems impact companies that go to other countries to do business and what are their implications for managers. So let's start with political systems. Now, political systems can have two dimensions. One, the degree to which the political system in a country emphasizes collectivism versus individualism, and the second, the degree to which it's democratic versus totalitarian state. Okay. Now, collectivism is a society where the needs of society are viewed as more important than individual freedom, and it's often equated with socialism. Now, here socialism can take two forms. One is communism, which is a more violent form of socialism, while the other can be where a country thinks that they can achieve their socialist goals through democratic means, which is called social democracy. Individualism is a type where the individual goals are given more importance than the society's overall goals. That is, individual freedom and self expression is guaranteed in the society, and it is believed that people should be allowed to pursue their economic and other self interests in order to achieve the best overall good for the society. Now, democracy, as we know, is a form of government where the representative is elected by the people of the country. And most democratic countries today are run by elected representatives, while totalitarianism is a form of government where one person or one political party exercises absolute control over the spheres of human life in that country and prohibits all kind of political opposition. Now, this totalitarianism can take four forms. One is communist totalitarianism, which can be seen in countries like Vietnam, Cuba, and it was formerly seen in USSR or China. The second can be theocratic totalitarianism, which is generally seen in some of the Islamic countries. Here, the power is based on the religious laws. The third can be tribal totalitarianism, which is sometimes seen in African countries like Zimbabwe, Tanzania, etc. And the fourth is right-wing totalitarianism, which is not very common nowadays, but it was formerly seen in Germany and Italy of 1930s and 1940s. Now we move on to the differences in economic systems of the nations. Economic systems can be of three types. One is market economies. This is the type of economy where goods and services are privately owned and production quantities are usually determined by demand and supply. That is, it's a free market. Okay. The second is command economies. Here the businesses are state owned and quantity and price of the product are dictated by the government, and government believes that it's doing this for equality in the society and for the benefit of the whole society as a whole. The third is mixed economies, which lies somewhere in between the market and command economies. Here the government, here most of the products are free, most of the market is free, but the government takes control of the industries that it considers vital to national interest, like defense, mining, and sometimes maybe like public transport, like railways, buses. Generally, individualism is equated with free market, and collectivism, the collectivist societies are seen, they tend to be state controlled. Now we move to the legal systems. The political ideology obviously influences the kind of legal system in a country has strongly. And legal systems can be of four types. One is common law, which originated in UK, and it's mostly seen in the previous British colonies. It's based on tradition, precedent, and custom. That is, the judges look up to the previous cases and the judgment of previous cases for deciding the present cases. And here, judges mostly not only have the power to apply the law but also interpret the law. Then second is civil law, which is based on a detailed set of laws which are further divided into different types of codes. And judges here not only have the power to apply the existing law but also interpret the law. It's seen in about 80 countries in the world, like Germany, Russia, Japan. Then the third can be theocratic system, which, as the name shows, is based on religious teachings. It's mostly common in Islamic countries, and nowadays here the Islamic law is mixed with common law or civil law because Islamic law is many times not able to deal with the intricacies of the modern business world. The fourth can be bureaucratic law, which is mostly followed in communist and totalitarian countries. Here, the the ultimate power lies in the hands of bureaucrats, and however they want to interpret, they can interpret the law. This is very dangerous for conducting business, and companies are generally scared to do business in such states because they do not have any final recourse. Now, what are the laws affecting international business? So, when a company moves to a different country to business, it should take the help of local lawyers to understand the local laws, and it should keep in mind some of the things that can happen with it, like sanctions, which are restraints against doing business with a particular country, like United States has done with Myanmar for its human rights abuses, or Iran for its nuclear program. Then second thing that can happen is embargo, which is a total ban against commercial activities with a country like Cuba, with the United States since about six decades. And the last is extraterritoriality, which are the laws to regulate international business outside the national territory. So the legality of extraterritoriality is disputable, but companies should still keep them in mind while doing business outside the territory, just in case to be cautious. Now, what are the potential problems that a company can face while doing business in a foreign land? So, one thing that can happen is nationalization. Uh, Nationalization is the conversion of private property, the assets of a private company, to public property. Now, it can happen through two ways: expropriation or confiscation. Expropriation is when the private owners are compensated for the property that has been nationalized, and the worst is confiscation, where the private owners are not compensated for their private property, which happened in Cuba in late 1950s and 1960s, late 1950s and early 60s, which is why the U.S. Government um, imposed an embargo upon the Cuba. And privatization is the opposite of nationalization, where the state-owned property is converted to privately owned property. And this is good for business. So if a nation is privatizing a lot, that means it's pro-business and companies should go to that country. A company should also be aware of the laws that govern the repatriation of profits back from the host country to the home country, because that is ultimately their objective. So they should know about how they have to convert the currency and all, and whether it's easy or difficult in that country. Now we come to dispute resolution in international business. So whenever two firms from different countries enter business, they sign a contract, they enter into a contract. Now here we have four questions that need to be kept in mind. First is which country's laws would be applied, because one country may have civil law, the other may have common law. So they have to agree upon one common method of laws. And the second would be in which country would the issues be resolved, because as we discussed, the laws could be different. One country's legal system could be slow or untrustworthy, so they might think of some third country where they can take their dispute. Then the third problem is which technique will be used. So are the companies thinking of litigation against each other, or are they thinking of going to arbitration court, or they are thinking of negotiation or mediation? Then the final could be the how will the settlement be enforced. So if one country's court adjusts the settlement in favor of one company, now the decision has to be implemented in the second country, where the country may or may not respect the decision of the first country's court. So they have to decide upon how the settlement will be implemented in the end. Now, the contract enforcement in different legal systems. In common law systems, contracts tend to be very, very detailed, because you have to write and plan all the contingencies that can happen. But in civil law system, the contracts are generally smaller, and that is why they are cheaper but less specific. So about 83 countries of the world have signed the United Nations Conventions on Contracts for the International Sale of Goods, which is called CISG. So if a company is going to a country which is not a party to this contract, then they have to think of an alternative. And as we just mentioned, that in some countries legal systems can take a lot of time, so the judiciary of a country can be very, very slow. So that is why companies in countries like India, they generally prefer going to arbitration courts in a third country, in international arbitration courts like one in France. Now, companies need to know about the property rights, especially the intellectual property rights. It's very important while conducting business in Eastern countries, especially if a company from a Western country is going to an Eastern country, because in developing countries, the property rights are violated a lot, can by private action as well as public action. So private action like theft, piracy, which is rampant in entertainment industry or software industry, and even public actions too, like if a country is charging a foreign company excessive tax, or if a company has to give bribe to get their work done in a country, that also counts as a violation of property rights. So a lot of countries have passed laws which prevent their companies to bribe foreign officials. Now this creates a non-level playing field, because some countries like US have forbidden their companies to give bribe in foreign countries, but some countries have not. So this creates a competitive disadvantage for companies from countries like US while doing trade in a foreign country. Then, and it's really difficult to do trade in some countries without breaking law, where corruption is high, like most of the Asian and African countries. Now, in the end, what are the implications for managers? So, while deciding upon a country to do business where you are going to conduct business, managers need to keep a lot of things in mind. So, they have to analyze the political economy extensively, exhaustively, to understand the attractiveness of that country as a potential market and investment site. They have to analyze political costs, economic costs, as well as legal costs. There are a lot of risks of doing business, like ownership risk, operating risk, or transfer risk. So, what are the economic risks attached? So, there could be inflation in that country. The currency of that country could be unstable, and the conversion of the currency of that country to your home country could have a lot of transaction costs involved. That would be kept in mind. And lastly, they have to consider legal risk, as we just discussed, that intellectual property laws, whether the judicial system of that country is slow or weak, like not worthy of trust. So those kind of things companies and managers should keep in mind while going to a different country to do business. This is all for this lecture. Thank you.